When you think of a farmer, what comes to mind? Or better yet, what comes to mind when you picture a farming family, say, in Northern Ireland? Do you have it in your mind? Good. Now that you got that image, you're probably thinking, what, red barns, green tractors, maybe some bucolic scene with sheep, right? Well, today's farmer couldn't be further away from that image. I'm AJ Barcet, and you've tuned into the Analog Explorer podcast. Read about my analog manifesto, my passion for photography, and my love of travel and watches in print or online at analogexplorer.com. Today's guest is what you would call an underwater farmer. He doesn't tend a flock or a crop, or, well, not a crop that you would think on terrestrial land. He's a regular Captain Nemo tending a crop of kelp off the coast of Northern Ireland in frigid waters, suiting up for work not in bibbed overalls, but in a wetsuit, 7 mil to be exact, with a dive knife and, of course, a good dive watch. His name is Graham Gannon, owner and proprietor of the Peninsula Kelp Co. He's a family man, a diver, a underwater farmer of sustainable ocean nutrition, and a friend of ours in the Watch fam.
Hello from Ireland, or I should say Northern Ireland.
Where in Northern Ireland are you?
I'm based on the Ards Peninsula, Newton Ards Peninsula, which would just be sort of east of Belfast, possibly about, say, 10 miles east of Belfast. It's a small spit of land that just sort of, as you're coming around into the Irish Sea, we are based there. It's nice. It's slightly remote, countryside, and I'm on then. So I've got the Irish Sea on one way, and then on the other side, I've got Strangford Lough, which is a hidden gem in Europe, basically. So yeah, originally from Dublin. My background, basically, I'm a bit of a mixed bag. Done all sorts of different things. I was always a diver. I've always, since 1975, since I was 5 years of age, always in the water, spearfishing, diving, what have you. So diving was a big thing in my life. I grew up more or less on the beach in Dublin. Left home in '88, went to America. I have a lot of tradition in their family that left Ireland and went off to America to join the forces and fought in the Pacific campaign, underwater demolition team, and then Vietnam. And, fast forward there, finished school '88, packed my rucksack, wanted to join the US Navy. Got a flight, went to Boston, landed in Boston on a Wednesday, Thursday morning, Dorchester Avenue. I was banging on the door of the recruiter, and the recruiter said, "Son, have you got a green card?" I went, "No." And he said, "Look, I'll tell you what." He says, "We'll see, can we get the Navy to sponsor you?" So I spent 2 years in America doing every job from cleaning bingo halls to hanging sheetrock to McDonald's to working in a law firm while I was trying to get into the US Navy. And that unfortunately didn't happen. The Navy did everything to sponsor me, but immigration just wasn't letting it happen. And my mother said to me, "Son, there's an advertising in the newspaper. Do you fancy joining the Merchant Navy?" And so, yeah, I said, "Yeah, I'll give it a go." And my other friend, he went off and joined the French Foreign Legion. I said, "Look, you know what, Mom? My heart is at sea. I'm going to join the Merchant Navy." So she sent me away. I left America, heartbroken, absolutely heartbroken. I absolutely loved my time there. Landed back in Ireland and joined the Merchant Navy and became a cadet. Went to sea and trained as a deck officer, navigation officer. But so I went off to sea, spent about 7-8 years there, and then decided, you know what, I just need something, give me a little bit of excitement. Came ashore, was just always chasing adventure. Joined the British Army and joined an Irish regiment. I joined the Royal Irish Rangers, and I spent nearly 8 years there. Another opportunity landed on my plate. So I retrained then as a commercial diver, got my hard hat ticket, and went out into Civvy Street. And I got a job straight away working in the commercial diving industry, doing ship repair, underwater construction, all civil engineering projects, around the country. Doing every day is dynamic. One day you're surveying, the next day you're taking a rope off a prop. an opportunity came up where the company that I was based with got the opportunity to take on the police underwater search team role, as it was unheard of for this tender to go out to a to a civilian company. And I was in the right place at the right time, plenty of experience in different roles that would be applicable to that. So they offered me the role for underwater search team, as well as my commercial diving. So I spent 12 years on the underwater search team.
So you would think, if you're an adventuresome kind of person at this point, with a CV like that, and the passion for staying beneath the waves as opposed to above it, you would think that Graham would be absolutely happy. What more could you ask for? Or better yet, how would anyone have, say, time to do anything else? Well, remember, in all of that long list of things that he's accomplished, the business of farming hasn't been brought up yet. So you're probably thinking, much like I was, how does one go from a frogman to a farmer?
Yeah, I've kept busy. I am not one for sitting on my hands. I'm not one for sitting on my hands. I mean, when we were growing up, seaweed was always a big thing. How the real seaweed thing came about with the Peninsula Kelp was I actually built an underwater trail on the seabed, right? It's something I was passionate about years ago. I wanted to help divers train properly, recreational divers. I saw a big gap in confidence things when divers came out, and just to keep them, current and competent, I built a trail on the seabed. I gathered a lot of rope. I gathered 800 meters of rope over a period of time. And then I made these pins. There was a diving club not too far from me in Bangor. And I approached them, they were like, "You're nuts." And I said, "Look, you're a diving club and the water's right there and you don't use it." And they were like, "It's too shallow." And I said, "It's perfect to train." So I built this, me and this other guy designed this, and we built this basically like a pyramid on the seabed, and we extended it. And when we were extending it, we started to find things on the seabed. And then we started to look at the history. And as we're looking at the history, we realized this place has been an anchorage from the 15th century. And we started to find bits of timber, old bottles, and it became really interesting. So the trail extended just to make things interesting. So the diver didn't have to navigate, but he'd go practice skills, lift things off the seabed, all stuff like that. It was amazing. But while I was doing that, I came up with an idea, because I'm a firm believer in helping charities. I said, let's do an underwater marathon and let's raise money. And the guys were like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Let's swim 26.5 miles around this trail as a team effort," right? So I put it out on social media, and I got a group of people to sign up. And then I approached local charities, the lifeboats, Children's Cancer, Air Ambulance. And then we raised, I think it was nearly $5,000, say. It was just short of that. But while I was there, I asked my wife to help me, to raise more money. So she said, "What could I do?" I said, "Well, look, let's make soap," right?
Okay,
and she
random.
said, yeah. And she's real creative. And she went, "Right, okay, it's different than a cake sale." So we made soap. But she said to me, "When you're out, bring back some kelp, will you?" So I brought back some kelp. We started to see how the kelp reacted to soap. And she went, "This is amazing." I went, "Well, Andrea," I said, "when I was growing up in Dublin, the kelp was either in your garden, helping your potatoes, or it was in your stew, in your soup." My grandmother was a beachcomber, and she used to bring in bags of seaweed and bags of driftwood on a Monday. She'd always walk. Yeah, she grew up on the beach.
As Graham admitted before, he doesn't like to sit on his hands. And it was through this act of charity that he kind of stumbled upon another title of his, entrepreneur. And with his creative wife, Andrea, and of course, very, very savvy daughters, this is where the impetus of Peninsula Kelp Company came to fruition. You might even say that those first bits of kelp that he brought back to Andrea to put into soap, that was really the seeds to the Peninsula Kelp Company. And from there, Andrea and him started experimenting more and more. So after the soap, Graham and Andrea started playing around with herbs and kelp, and of course a little pinch of sea salt here and there, and they started creating these jars of seasoning. They then started making it and giving it away to friends and family, and quickly became known that kelp and that seasoning and just dealing with kelp in general was kind of their thing. So much so it kind of started a little bit of a demand for them. They were invited to have a table at the farmer's market. A doodle of a diver's helmet became their iconic logo for the Peninsula Kelp Company. They were literally growing as fast as kelp does. Until the day came, Graham had to ask himself, what do I call myself? Is there even a job title that can go to a person who dives and makes things out of kelp?
You know what? I didn't know what to call myself until one day I was at a meeting and there was a guy who was a journalist for a farmer's journal. And he said to me, I'd really like to do an article on you and your wife. He says, because your underwater farming is amazing. I went, and he goes, do you know you could get a grant for that? And I was like, no. And he goes, well, you're a farmer. And I went, right. I didn't really know what job description to put down. And so that's where it came about. He said, yeah, you're an underwater farmer. I just didn't know what sort of category or box we would fit into. But he wrote an article on us and he, described us as underwater farmers. And that's sort of how the hashtag came about, on my badge. It's sustainable ocean nutrition, where there's so many, I think there's about 1,400 species of seaweed. I mean, worldwide, that is. I may be wrong. Again, I'm just an underwater farmer. I'm not a marine biologist. I have a fair bit of knowledge, but I do claim I do not know everything. And I always try to get that across to people that, if I don't know what it is, I will go and try find out for you. But as far as I know, there's about that many species, and my ethos is to do it sustainably, not damage the environment. We rotate our sort of cropping plan. And it's just me, Andrea, wetsuits, a knife, fins, mask and snorkel, and a bag and a float, and clicked onto my hip, and off we go. And and then Leah, my eldest daughter, who's going off to Wales University next week to become a marine biologist, she's a camera woman. And then my 11-year-old is the one who helps me do Lightroom and social media.
It sounds like you're a farming family. I mean, most farms are run by family. Your daughters are free diving with you. Now, Northern Ireland is akin to our Salish sea waters and such. So it's a bit brisk. I mean, are you guys, and you're not dry bagging it, you're in wetsuits?
No, so. I don't dry bag. I actually use a suit, a 7mm spearfishing suit from Cressy. So and it's probably one of the better suits I've ever used. As I said, I've been sort of in the water since 1975, say, and I've gone through a lot of wetsuits. And I don't think I'll return back to old neoprene anymore. I think it's open cell neoprene for me is the way to go. As I said, I'm 12 months of the year in the water. I've seen it 2 degrees here, then -1, and it's more the wind chill factor would cut you in half when you get northerly winds here. And as I said, 7mm and up to 5mm, gloves. I just wear woolly socks, big hiking socks inside the booties in the winter. Drink lots of coffee, lots of water before you go in, and swim fast and pee more, so to speak. So, I could be in the water depending on what I need that particular day, what I need to restock. I could be in the water anything up to, let's say, 4 hours, depending what I need. Minimum an hour, because I got to swim out to a reef section, which is about 400 meters when it starts, and then the rocks, level off. Depending on the sort of the time tides, I could be anything from 1 meter, 2 meters to 6 meters, say, on a spring water. So I have to work harder at the 6 meter point. But the kelp, as the winter goes on, the kelp sort of dies off a little bit on the upper level. And then it's beautiful kelp along the bottom and the ledge. And the dullus sort of, if I'm using this term correctly, has like a symbiotic relationship with the kelp. It grows underneath the kelp. So I have to get down, and if you notice in some of my little videos, I'm actually pushing through the kelp, swimming, and I'm actually looking for dullus, or else looking for lobsters or from a dinner kind of thing, But yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's healthy, and it's honest work. I always feel very, very revived after it, especially when it's cold.
It's healthy and it's honest work. Now that sounds like a farmer to me. And just like any farmer, passionate about the ecology of the farm, the ground to the critters. Just like any farmer, a farmer will tell you everything from the weather, to the soil, to the pH, to the critters that are good and bad. But there's still one part missing, and that is most farmers, when you're on terrestrial land, you have a plot that you till and then you sow, and then of course you harvest and you sell. Well, how does one do that if it's beneath the waves? It's kind of a unique situation. Not only does Graham and his family have the skills and the lungs to do this on the regular 12 months out of the year, but how does one become a farmer of underwater land? Well, of course, like any businessman or entrepreneur, you're going to read about the laws and agencies that you have to go to, start knocking on doors, filling out paperwork. So as he is explaining this adventurous, endeavorsome plan, there's an essence of almost true adventure. This hasn't been done. So, of course, when he presents this, the government agencies and departments...
They said, "You're nuts, go away."
Oh, I guess I didn't see that coming.
And I kept knocking on the doors and approached the Department of Environment, Department of Fisheries, and I spent a year sort of doing surveys over seabed to find, the more research we did, the more we became involved. The more we loved what we were doing. I know we only had 2 sea things, but I kept saying, no, there's something here, Andrew, we need to get this out. So Andrew and I would just stick our wetsuits on a Sunday, take a slate, a lead line, and, take soundings, watch the tides, read the tides, the kelp compositions and the different types of seaweeds that were in the area. But also I started to research the water quality, research the circulation of tides in the area. And from there, we found an area. And then upon more research, I found out that this area was next to Queen's University, which is quite a good university here. They do a lot of research. So I drove down to Portaferry, knocked on the door, and this girl came out and I said, "Look, I need to speak to someone here." And they were like, "Who are you?" And they were like, "Okay, we'll talk to you." So they talked to me. And when I went in, all of a sudden I was surrounded by these people, these so passionate people. And they realized how passionate I was about it. And they said, "Well, we're happy to help you." So we haven't, in the meantime, we surveyed this area. We'd approached the Crown Estate and we came up with a leasing project. So they enabled us to lease this section of seabed from them. Predominantly the Queen owns the seabed for till the 12-mile limit. So they came up with a price and we proposed a way we could do this. And so they leased me a section of seabed, just like a farmer's field. So that was only one hoop I had to jump through. I had to jump through another 2 hoops. Then I had to approach the Department of Environment and I had to come up with a plan how I could do this with sustainable and how I wouldn't damage the area I'm going to be in. So I sat down over a period of weeks and I researched how a farmer would do it. And I came up with a rotational cropping plan. And Andrea and I sat down and did survey after survey of, the different. So we actually came up with 6 different locations in our area where we could harvest the whole full 12 months of the year, and everything could be sustainable. So basically, we stipulated we wouldn't use scuba. We would do everything by the power of the hand and the power of our lungs. We would hold our breath, free dive, and they were happy with that. They were like, "Right, we're happy with that." And eventually, so that took about a year, and eventually they signed off on the plan. Like, they just thought we were nuts. They were like, "You're gonna wear a wetsuit 12 months of the year," and I was like, "Yeah, look, I take a lot of cold showers. It's okay. I'm good with the cold." The way I say is swim faster and pee more. It's instant suit warmer. So they went for that in the end. And then the fisheries and stuff, I had to sort of negotiate that I wouldn't affect the local fishing, community with the lobsters and stuff like that. And that's how it started. In the meantime, then I did an interview, our local radio, and then people heard about me, and then hotels and pubs started like contact us and say, I want to get some kelp off you can you come see me? So we started to deliver kelp to restaurants, for vegan elements and also for garnishes. And for cocktails, I was delivering to a cocktail bar.
And just like that, the fame and notoriety of this family and the Peninsula Kelp Company took off. It's about this time that I got introduced to Graham and the Peninsula Kelp Company, because yours truly was ordering and importing some of that kelp and dullis from Northern Ireland to here in Bellingham, Washington. Using it in our foods, and with my 5-year-old son's allergies, I was able to guarantee that there wasn't any chance of cross-contamination to his allergies. Yes, you heard right, a 5-year-old boy loving to eat kelp and dullis. Now granted, I have it a little bit easy because he's all in when it comes to the ocean. He loves his octonauts, Jacques Cousteau, and the Vegemals. So when I told him how this was harvested, he was ready, willing, and able to eat it. But more on that on my blog, ajbarce.com. But getting back to the Peninsula Kelp Company, as the Gannon family developed the Peninsula Kelp Company, of course, it grew. And with growth came opportunity. And as we know, Graham doesn't like to sit on his hands. But this is 2019.
And then an opportunity came along then later on in 2019, where we were offered a little container in a little down the street in our local town, and it was called the Precinct, and it was 8 feet by 30 feet container, or 20 something like that. And the guy said, "Look, I'll lease you this container. You can have as a shop." So my wife was just like, always wanted to have her own little shop. So she said to me, "What way can we do this? Because it's so small." And I said, "Look, have you ever seen inside a yacht?" I says, "A yacht is small." I says, I will make this like the inside of a boat." And she went, "I have no idea how you're going to do that." I says, "Just leave me alone." I says, "I'll get my tools out." So I spent about 6 weeks every night after work going there. Like, you finish work, it's by the time I got home, got my tools, got my dinner, went there, finished at 1:00, went home, was up at 7, went to work, did that. And then they were putting pressure on us to open the shop, because there was a lot of people in town were like, "What are you doing? What do you make? What is it?" And we were like, "Seaweed." And they're like, "Seaweed? You're going to open a shop and sell seaweed?" So then people started to get really interested in us. Politicians were like, "When you open the seaweed shop?" So then a competition came up where the town was up for an award. Our town is Newton Ards, and it has to be open for the 4th of September because there's an award. So I worked like a smurf, and I got it done. And I got it finished by the 3rd of September, and we opened the doors, and it was just great. It was fantastic, And in the meantime, we'd made a lot more products from our seaweed. We started to develop a butter, our seaweed butter, which is absolutely epic, and oils, infused oils, obviously the crackers. And then we were making smoothies in the shops using the seaweed, So again, and then we actually put a boat next to the shop where we were growing herbs using seaweed as a fertilizer. And it literally, we used just, good soil and mixed the seaweed in with the soil. So the soil, the soil became packed with nitrates, and it was feeding the plants and the herbs. So people could come in off the street and order a specific type of smoothie, and they would ask for a herb. Andrew would go out and literally cut the herb in front of them and make the smoothie. So it was things like that involved in the shop. And it just went from there, developing different things. It went from there. And everything was going wonderful. We were supplying restaurants. I was kept really busy. I was working as a commercial diver. I was on the road. Then at the weekends, I was harvesting. And then Andrea was baking in the morning. Then she would bake in the shop, because we had cookers. We had a little cooker in the shop. And then, I do a coffee range. So because I spent a lot of time on the road, and I got tired of buying hot, dirty, expensive water. So I was doing my own coffee, and then I had coffee in the shop and stuff like that. And that ran on till March 22nd of 2020, and then boom, COVID came. So I was getting out of my car on a Saturday morning, big tray of butter, going across to open up, and the guy comes over and he goes to me, "Hey, did you not hear the news? And I went, no, I haven't heard any news. And he says, as of today, you're closed. And I went, what do you mean? He says, do you sell milk? Do you sell bread? And I went, no. He goes, forced closures, you're non-essential. But he says, you're okay, you're going to get help. And I was like, right, okay, well, that's good. But little unknowns to us that he was taking our rent, but he wasn't paying our rates. And he didn't have planning permission for our little site. So for 10 weeks on after that, he was dangling a carrot with us. And when we approached, our government organization to help us with the funding, they said to us, we don't even know who you are. And we lost our shop. Yeah, that was tough, because we were very, very emotionally attached to our shop. We put a lot of money into it, a lot of effort, a lot of man hours spent in that small period of time where we had the shop.
But remember, Graham is still a professional diver during the work week. So the shop might be closed, but at least he's still diving, right? Well, earlier that week when he was at the office, another bombshell of bad news was dropped on him and his fellow divers. This was supposed to be just a normal day. Still processing what had just happened, he knocked off for the day. He hopped up in his truck and
drove up the road, and I said to the wife, I said, look, just lost that job there. And she said, God, you've another year left. And I went, yeah, well, COVID's come and they've lost the contract, so they're moving management into our position. So she said, look, don't worry about it. We'll get through this. We're a firm believer in, cheerfulness in the face of adversity.
Holding on to the belief of cheerfulness in the face of adversity. I admire the Gannon family for this. I mean, put yourselves in their shoes. You've just lost your job and your side hustle. And now what during a pandemic? I think all of us can empathize with where they're at right now. This would be a tipping point for anyone, or it could be a turning point.
And I lost my job on the Wednesday, and then we lost our shop on the Saturday. But it was 10 weeks that we were in limbo, and like Andrea was very, very upset. She was crying her eyes out one night. We were sitting here, and I said, look, I said, just look, let's just get a beer here, and let's just chill out. I always wanted to be a full-time kelp diver, underwater farmer. The more I was involved, the more I said, I really, really am passionate about this, that I would like to sort of, step away from what I was doing with the search team, and then just focus on the kelp and focus on us, and building our little business. Because, if you enjoy food and, as we say, you have a relationship with your food, so you should know where it's coming from. And I think it was key to us in our social media, was to tell people the story of our food, of, what we do. It's key for me that my seaweed comes from the seabed. I don't pick it off the rocks. I hand dive for my seaweed. Like, I know my kelp bed. I know where my dulles is. I know where my sea lettuce is. I have about a 400-meter swim out to where my sort of start area is. And then I go from there, But getting back to the shop. So we're sitting here, and I said, look, Andre, there's no one coming to help us here. It's up to us now. I says, it's up to us. I says, and if we're failing here, it's because we're failing to be resourceful here. We actually have something, here, and it's amazing. We just need to forget about being competitive, but we'll be more creative. So she went outside and she came in with this chopping board full of cheese, crackers. And I went, did you just make that up there? And she said, yeah. I said, that's a work of art. And she started laughing. I said, what? We should really put that in a box and get it out there. And she goes, what do you mean? I says, well, when I was a young sailor, when the captain invited you to sit at his table, you knew you were going to eat well. And I said to her, I'm going to call that the captain's table. And that's how the development of the Captain's Table cheese board came about for us. And that saved us. That saved us because we were, at our wits' end. We'd lost our shop, I'd lost my job. And all I wanted to do was be, full-time kelp farmer. And combining local artisan cheeses and combining air products, we developed this little grazing box. And that just saved us, that fed my family, because I have two girls, and that kept us going, So from there, people started to notice it, and then I got invited to do like a TV show, interviews, and it just, went from strength to strength, and it's where I wanted to be. I just, it's where both of us wanted to be, doing this type of work.
Just like a tide, things ebb and flow, and also sometimes you get tussled by waves crashing down upon you. And in this case, Graham, this is going with the tide. And this is kind of one of those things where you kind of have to take one big breath and just dive in. And on that note, that's where we're going to wrap up this first half of this Analog Explorer. But don't worry, there is a second half. But if this first part has got you kelp curious, be sure you support Graham and his family in the Peninsula Kelp Company at peninsulakelpco.com. Longtime supporters of me and the Analog Explorer, a big shout out to all of my Patreon patrons at patreon.com/AJBarsay. You might have noticed that this episode was definitely cut and mixed a lot differently than I normally produce. And it's kind of just part of something different that I wanted to try. But I still wanted it to fit within our time slots on KMRE 102.3 FM here in Bellingham, Washington. Or fit within the feed, of course, at the Bellingham Podcast. But if you'd like to listen to the entire two-part episode, go on over to the Analog Explorer in your favorite podcast app of choice and subscribe. You'll get both halves there. And yes, my friends in the watch fam, Graham and I do talk about his watches. It's in the second half. I'm AJ Barsay, your Analog Explorer. Thank you again for subscribing, rating, reviewing, wherever you like to get this podcast, and just supporting me, whether that's on Instagram at AJ Barsay or online at analogexplorer.com.